Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're gonna be making kinetic typography like you just saw in the intro. For that we'll be using Blender. I'm using version 2.91 and Photoshop. The principle behind this technique is using our text as a displacement map for Blender. First we're gonna start up Photoshop. We're gonna create a new file. Make it square, then it will be easier to work with within Blender. I'm gonna choose a high resolution, like 4000 pixels by 4000 pixels. So we have plenty of room. Okay, I'm just gonna write some text. You can choose whatever you want. I'm gonna go with Airwaves. Yeah, that's actually a really great song by Pashanim. You can choose whatever font you like. I'm just gonna go with Arial because I think it looks quite nice and it's a free font, so everyone can use it. Then next thing you're gonna do is scale the text up. We want it to nearly fill the width of our file, so like that. Then we're just gonna make some copies of this. Okay, then we're gonna space it evenly. We can do that with this function. Watch out that there's an even border around the whole thing. We will add a background to it. We're gonna choose solid white. Then we're gonna choose all of the layers and press Ctrl E to merge them into one single layer. Then the next thing we do is blur it a little bit. We need to blur it so the edges of our displacement within Blender aren't as harsh. We want a little bit of a smooth transition. I will show you why that's important later. I'm gonna go around 8 pixels, like that. Then we're just gonna save it on a place that we will find it again as a JPEG. I'm also saving one that's not blurred to show you the difference. Okay, now that we got our text, we will go back into Blender where we can use it as a displacement texture. First thing we're gonna do in Blender is add a new plane. And we're gonna press Shift into edit mode and subdivide it. Our plane will need a lot of resolution to be displaced, else it won't really work. And I'm also gonna scale the thing up a little bit more so we have some space to work with. Then we're gonna add a subdivision modifier to give it even more resolution. Then we're gonna choose the plane and create a new material in the shading editor. Then we're gonna add an image texture. We're gonna press open and choose our image that we created in Photoshop. Plug it into the base color. Then we're gonna go into the material preview. Now you can see we have our texture on our plane, but we want to repeat it a little bit. So we're gonna press Ctrl T to add the mapping node. And for that you will also need the Node Wrangler add-on. To activate the add-on you can go under Edit, Preferences and just search for Node Wrangler and activate that. It's a very helpful add-on. I can highly recommend it. Now we can choose how much we want to scale our texture. I'm gonna go with 3. So we have 3 on each side for a total of 9. Next thing we will do is add a displacement node. Displacement. And we will plug the color channel of our texture into that height. And the displacement output in our material output. Now you can see there isn't much happening, and that's because we will need to switch to the rendered view and to cycles. This technique only works with cycles. But you will see there's still nothing happening, and that's because we will need to go into the material properties of our material, scroll down, and in settings you will find displacement. We will change that to displacement and bump. And now we'll see our plane has been displaced. First of all, it's in the wrong direction. Our letters are engraved and aren't coming out. And also it's way too much. We're gonna change that to -0.2. Okay, it looks a little bit better, but wait, it's gonna be alright. So we're gonna unplug the base color, so we only see the material. Then we're gonna add a light to better see what's going on. Gonna increase the strength to 1000. This looks better. So yeah, now you see our text is there, but it's very blocky. And this is due to the subdivision level of our plane. It's basically the resolution we're working with. First of all, we're gonna increase it to see what's going on. You will probably need to go to 5 so that it looks alright. But be cautious, it's very taxing for your computer and he might freeze or take a long time to load. We're also gonna choose the plane and shade it smooth. So this will also iron out some of the imperfections. You see, looks much better now. And right now I will show you why we blurred our image texture. This is the not blurred version. And now you can see it's very harsh and it looks very ugly because we would need even more resolution, but this would probably kill our computer. So we're not gonna do that. That's why we chose to blur our texture to get a smoother transition between the edges. We're just gonna go back and choose our blurred version. We're also gonna decrease our subdivision to 3 again, so we can work with it without lagging. Then we'll also change the render subdivision to 5, because when we render our image, we want it to look really nice and smooth. Now we're gonna add the waves to our plane. For that we're using a noise texture. You can just add it and basically just plug the color into the height of the displacement. Now you can already see we got some displacement going on, but it's way too small and way too detailed for now. So we're gonna decrease the number on the scale. You just need to play around with those settings to find something that suits you. So what's our problem now? We have our noise texture for the waves and we have the one for our letters. Next thing we need to do is combine the two. For that we'll use a mix node. Gonna add and search for mix RGB. This node basically combines the two RGB values or brightness values of the noise and our text. We're just gonna plug them in. Now we can plug the mix node into the displacement. You can see it already looks better, but it's not quite there yet. We're gonna choose add. And now our text is way too strong. But if we dial down our scale right here, we will also decrease the value of our waves, and we don't want it. We were happy with the waves. And to change that, we're gonna be adding an RGB curve. By pulling this point around, we will decrease the black value to a gray or even white if we want it. White means there will be no text left to displace. So we just want a little bit of it. You will need to play around with the settings. I'm gonna go with something very low, maybe 0.98. Now you can see we combined our wave texture with our text. This is exactly what we wanted. You can also change the mid level if you like. We're gonna go with 1. So we have it where the actual plane is. The next thing we need to do is make the animation for our waves. We're just gonna go on the noise texture and press Ctrl T to create the mapping nodes. To see what's going on, we will decrease the viewport subdivision again to 0. If we change the X or Y direction, our waves will go in that direction. But to create the natural looking wave, we will need to play with the Z value. So now you can see it moves the whole thing very naturally. And I think I'm just gonna make it 240 frames, so 10 seconds with 24 FPS. Then I'm gonna set a keyframe at the beginning, insert keyframe, and then I'm gonna go to 240, increase the value, maybe 1.5 meters, and set another keyframe. What's also important is to choose the keyframes and change the interpolation mode from curve to linear. So our movement will start immediately and won't gradually increase. Back to the beginning and let it play. You see it's very slow right now, so I would like it to be a little bit faster. It's very easy, you just go there, increase the size to maybe 1, replace the keyframes and play it again. As this looks much better and much more organic. What you can also do a little bit is also play with the X or Y value to let the waves flow in a certain direction. Then go back here and push the whole thing to the side a little bit and replace the keyframes. So now it looks a little bit more like water. Okay, now that we got our animation, we will need to work on the lighting. I usually prefer to work with HDRIs because it gives much more natural and pleasing light. I get all my HDRIs from HDRI Haven. They are free to use. I will link them down in the description so you can try them yourself. For that we're just gonna add an environment texture in our shader editor. Open our HDRIs. Okay, I'm gonna choose an outdoor one and I'm gonna use Chiara Dawn. It's a sunset HDRI and I really like the look of it. So now you can already see that the light is much more pleasing and nice looking. I like this kind of evening vibe that this HDRI gives. Then the next thing we are going to change is the material of our plane. I'm gonna go back in the object. You can just try out different things. You can make it metallic like that, so the whole environment reflects in it. It looks also quite cool, I think. But I guess I'm gonna go with a specular material. And I guess I will also change the base color to a darker material. I would also like to change the displacement a little bit. I think it could be a little bit more, maybe. So we're gonna go in here and adjust this one right here. Okay, right now you see it's blocky again. That's because we don't have enough resolution in our viewport. So we're gonna change the subdivider to 5, maybe 4 again. And now you can already see it better. I'm gonna change this again till I'm happy, maybe a 7. Yes, I think this is a good amount of displacement, I like it. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a purple tint, maybe something like that, and maybe even a little bit brighter, like this. Okay, I'm just gonna lower the resolution some more again, so it's not as heavy on my computer to work with, maybe 2. And then I will create the camera to choose my angle and make my composition. The easiest way to do that is go into camera view, then press N, and in the tab view, you can lock the camera to the view. Like this, you can just move around and choose your angle. I'm gonna go for a square image, so I'm gonna choose 1920 by 1920. And I'm also gonna choose bigger focal length, maybe something like 120, maybe around that. And then I'm just gonna go and move the camera down a little bit so we can see the waves a little bit better. Yes, maybe like this. This looks quite nice. And now one thing that's very important to do is you need to play through the animation because of the waves. It might happen that your wave will move out of the camera. So I'm just gonna lower that again and play through it. And it looks quite nice, I think. So now that we got our camera view the way we like it, we will press N again and uncheck this box, because if you want to move your camera, you might mess up your positioning. And then in the shading editor, I'm gonna choose my world. Then I press Ctrl T. Now I can rotate my HDRI to get more interesting lighting. Also, one thing I forgot is to delete my point light again. I don't want the light of it influencing my render. And you can already see it looks way nicer, so I can just play around with my HDRI again. Okay, I'm very happy with how the lighting looks. So I'm gonna go back into the object shading tab and also increase the resolution of my subdivision a little bit, maybe 4. And what I'm gonna do is add some more details in the reflections, because right now you see it's very smooth and very perfect, and I think it would look nicely if we could break up that surface a little bit more. For that, we're gonna add a Musgrave texture and a bump node. We're gonna connect the height into the height and the normal in our normal tab. Now you see it generated some kind of shadows on our letters. That is because our texture is way too big right now. We'll need to decrease the scale. And also, very important, lower the strength. We only want it a little bit. And also the distance should be a little bit smaller. And now you can see what I'm getting at. The surface looks a little bit more imperfect now, but it's still way too much for me. I'm just gonna play with the settings. Now you can kind of see what I mean. If you look very closely, the surface isn't as perfect as it used to be. And I quite like this look. It breaks up the surface a little bit and makes it more organic. Next thing we're gonna do is compositing. I think this is always a very important step to make your animation look a little bit nicer. For that, we first need to render a frame. We're gonna go and render image. Okay, and as soon as it finished rendering, we're gonna close that again and go in the compositing workspace. Click on use nodes and we will get this. This is just like working with the material node editor. This here is the output what Blender will save. To see what's going on, we're gonna press Ctrl Shift and click on the rendered layers to open a viewer node. If it's not already open, we press N to open the menu, and here in view you can press fit to make it fit to the your workspace and see the whole image. Then we're gonna add a glare node. It always gives a very nice look and makes it feel a little bit more realistic. We are gonna make a combination of stars and glare. For that, I'm gonna just leave it at streaks for now. Offset the angle by 45 degrees. Okay, I'm gonna put mix to 1. And then I'm gonna also add another glare node. This. Also input the image right here. Then we need a mix node. We'll put it to add. Then here we'll take the image. And then we're gonna add a second node here and put this image right here. Now we can choose a fog glow for the second. You should also put mix to 1, which is very important, and that will decrease the size a little bit and increase the quality on both of them. And maybe the threshold a little bit up so it's not as much. Same with the stars, I will increase the threshold. You will just need to play around with the settings on how you like it. So what's very important is to connect the output of our glare or stars to the composite. So when it renders, it will also render this. Now when we render our frame, you will see it will take quite long. It's around 50 seconds per frame. Now the question is, how do we improve our render times? We're gonna go back into our workspace, and The first things are you can play around with your samples. Maybe you don't need as much samples, maybe 50 are enough, and maybe you can also decrease the resolution a little bit, maybe 75%. Also, if you have it available, use optics for rendering. It's so much faster. Another thing you can try is deleting some of the unused geometry. This means we can go in here into edit mode, choose a part of the mesh that we don't see, like this, and delete the vertices. And same thing on the other side. Go back into the camera view and see if we cut off too much or if it's right. Maybe we'll also get away with decreasing the subdivision count to 4. And one thing that's also increasing our render time a lot is the HDRI. What you can try is choosing a lower resolution HDRI. Ours is 8K right now, which is very high resolution, and because of that it also takes a lot of time to render. We're gonna swap it out with one that only has 2K resolution, which is fine for that because we don't really see the background, we only see the reflection, so we don't need very high resolution HDRI. If we are gonna go to render another image, you can see it loads much faster. Last time we were around 50 seconds per frame, and now we were able to reduce it around 11 seconds per frame. Okay guys, thanks for watching. This concludes the tutorial. I hope you had fun, I hope you learned something, and if you have any kind of feedback, just let me know. I would be very glad to hear it. And if you want to share your work with us, I'm gonna leave our Instagram down below in the description. Just tag us on your work or send it to us. We will be very glad to see it. Thanks for watching. Bye guys. See you next time.